and welcome back to another video. And we're going to be taking a look at a scenario where civilization starts over around episode 25. And last episode we saw the complete collapse of the Malaysian team. They are now basically just a puppet of South China, and communism has spread. As we can see, the South China team has communism. Indonesia adopted communism, as well as this Oceanic team, as well as several other countries across different continents. But today we're going to be taking a look at this one and what they're doing. And during the Australian Revolution, this one right here, it got a hold of a nuclear warship, and it got a hold of one nuke just recently. And they're going to use their newfound power, and they're going to be trying to take over this pink country right by them. And they go up through the top, and it was successful for a little while until there is one of probably the best army generals in all of history on this team. And he is so good, and he leads several victories up north here. And let's fix that. Okay, and I fixed that part. Yep, and he leads several victories up here till eventually capturing a lot of this area. And there are not really many major cities around this area, but this pink team is doing some very impressive stuff, and this general has already been able to march straight through this team's territory and get right outside the capital, almost surrounding it, when they have to call off their offense to go and help protect the capital. They eventually take the area by the capital back, but by this point, this general has led a lot of advances, and this is kind of like Napoleon Bonaparte of the modern world, except there was never an original one. And he does end up taking a lot of land down here. Not all of the land, but a lot. And they've lost their coast, and the nuclear warship has been captured by the pink team. And then the yellow team's going to get in on this. And now they might not even have to put up with this team anymore if they can successfully invade it. Eventually, they're going to meet up around here, and they're going to be left, but they don't surrender, and eventually a lot of their people starve until the armies keep advancing, and eventually this side is regained, and they're forced to surrender as they have sieged the capital. And now let's take a look at the peace treaty. And this is the peace treaty, and as we can see, this team is no longer a country, and there is a new puppet state in place. And the pink team did get a lot of coastal valuable land, and they did get this the main puppet state. So basically they got most of the land, whereas the yellow team got these three provinces. And now there is technically one less country and one new country. So we back up to the same amount of countries, I guess. Meanwhile, down here, and they have like territories. There's basically Papua New Guinea and New Zealand and Australia have territories somewhere else. And basically some of the territories are going to be trying to break away, and we're going to see more on this next episode. But basically, it starts at the North Island of New Zealand, and over here, it starts kind of like a naval blockade, as a naval blockade happens. And in Australia, there is a big movement, and it eventually grows like this. And we will check on these later in the episode. Meanwhile, we look over here in South America. Lately, it's been going pretty good for some of these countries. They have a lot of economical wealth. One country that does not like this, however, is this purple team does not like, or some of these surrounding countries, especially the Square Alliance, do not like their wealth, and and Peru will eventually declare war on them, and it immediately starts as they go into this area and take all their coast on this side, on the Pacific Ocean. They eventually take a lot of territory, but they're able to hold back, as we see this area in the north being taken back. And now we see the rest of their alliance attacking them. And this white team right here, eventually they make the first move out of them. And they march through this area. And go about like this. Meanwhile, this green country is very powerful. They're a very powerful country, especially for their size. When they eventually wrap around, cutting this off. Just like that. Eventually, this all falls over to them. And they're kind of getting beat up. But if you don't remember what I said they had a lot of financial wealth. And they've kind of lost a little bit of that, but that does not mean they aren't going to stop attacking. They want to regain control of it. And they eventually start going into Peru, making little advances, and even taking control of some of this land back. Down here, they're able to hold their ground. But advances are made into this country and this country. And this is what we're looking at right now. Eventually, a lot of their troops are focused up on this point, on these points. And basically, each of them there's basically two big fronts. There is this big front, then there is this big front, where all the fighting's, most of the fighting's happening. Eventually, they are able to take back the land, some of that land, but they are able to make it even closer into their old land, where another country enters this war. And which one would it be? Would it be Uruguay? Would it be southern Venezuela? Or would it be this Holy Roman Empire Union kind of thing? And it is the Holy Roman Empire. And the Holy Roman Empire is going to kind of make a deal with them to where gonna get 2 provinces, and in these 2 provinces they also get like an additional government. So now there's like 4 countries kind of working in the ARE, but they're getting aided, and that's gonna make it a lot easier for them to push down and hold back some of these front lines. Meanwhile, over here in Peru is kind of steamrolling this side, and they're not really focused on their own territory, whereas Brazil realizes this and they go through and take this whole big province. And a little bit of other land around it. Meanwhile, down here, this little area right here goes back over to Peru, and the rest of this land is getting kind of obliterated, and they are not able to get supplies back from home. And the blue team knew this, and they were being very strategic. And they are eventually able to take this area back and take all of it, making there be one major front line. Meanwhile, down here, it's going kind of good for these countries as they've remade some movements here. Because how distracted they were over in Peru, and they're going to surrender, and then we can take a look at the peace treaty right now. Is the peace treaty, and first off, we can see Peru got pretty much all the land that they wanted, and they got captured. Next, in Paraguay, they got 2 provinces down here. They got these 2. And this little country up here, they got these 2 provinces up here. Just that one and that one. And now they're pretty much more happy. And Brazil is not happy, and they're very mad. And everybody really thinks they're weak. So to show their anger, they're gonna try to take out. Uruguay, and they start invading in, and then they start to realize that, oh, this is kind of harder than we thought, as they're trying to make sure the public does not know about how bad they're actually losing, and and they're getting beat back pretty hard right now, and they're even able to push back into their territory and take a good amount of land, and they eventually take over this area until they pick up their game, and they do eventually go back in, and they're able to capture this area, and they get close to the capital, and Uruguay eventually surrenders at about this state right there, and they get 1 province out of this, and eventually the public finds out about how long the war went on for, and they're mad, and so we might start to see some uprisings occurring in the next episode. But for now, we're going to take a look back over here in these areas. First off, New Zealand, it has taken over the whole lower island, and it is granted independence they didn't really want to control this land. Anyways, they choose this, right? They choose this for their capital. Meanwhile, up here, it's not going well, as this area has been able to capture more land. And eventually, they get attacked from Indonesia as they want more land. And they've decided this is how they're going to get it. And yeah, that's their reason for this. As they take this northern peninsula thing, you know, march in, even taking some of these islands. Palau is going to seize this opportunity, and they're going to invade into this area and take some of these smaller islands, including this one big island. And then they'll stop. And Papua New Guinea is kind of collapsing. And they know this. And so the big government officials, they take a boat and they take it all the way. Just to take some turns until they reside on this little island right here and reestablish themselves right here on this island. Let's just get rid of some of that. And so we see them being able to survive on and in a completely different area of the world. We'll check back up on that part in a little bit. Meanwhile, they have basically collapsed, and this part, the north basically gets taken over by Indonesia. Palau actually comes onto the main island, and they're going to take this much land. Meanwhile, the rest of it down here goes to them. And then they surrender over to Palau and the rest of them. And then in the peace treaty, Palau is allowed to keep all of their islands that they wanted, including this really big one. And they even get this part of this peninsula down here. Over in Indonesia, they are granted this much islands, and this becomes a new country with their capital right there.
Hey, excuse you? What are you doing?
The rest of this turns into a puppet state of Indonesia. And we're going to color it red with the outline. And there we go. And yes, they still reside kind of up here, but they're very irrelevant. And it's kind of like the Taiwan situation in real life, but with this island. Eventually, Vietnam takes the island, and now Vietnam has even more land from when they started down here in the tip, and they've grown very large recently, and this might be continuing to happen in different spots. But now we have a more divided up world, and something kind of big, not really though, happens, and it's over here in Egypt. And Egypt, it wants this little green thing to unite with it. It's trying to annex this green thing, this green country right here. But the pink team is also trying to annex it. And this is kind of going to break out like in a war kind of thing. But they kind of end it peacefully with no one taking it. But tensions are still kind of high. So expect that for later episodes. And next, our daily Central America update. Okay, in the first part, the green team is going to backstab the lime team, and they start invading into this area. Meanwhile, the lime team starts invading into the lime this team, and then the orange team ends up getting rid of this whole team and even take the capital of the purple team, annexing it all. Meanwhile, the white blue team ends up going in and taking over some of this land, taking one province until they peacefully time out kind of thing. And then the lime team ends up giving these two provinces over to the green team. And up here, this team ends up getting all their land back. And then that is our daily Central Asian update. And that's really going to do it for today's episode. I have nothing more planned, nothing left to do. So I will see you in the next one. Bye.